You're sitting on the couch. Something went wrong today. Maybe it was work. Maybe it was a phone call you didn't want to take. And without meaning to, the tears start coming. Within seconds, your dog is there. Not across the room anymore, right beside you. Sometimes pressing against your leg, sometimes resting a paw on your knee, sometimes just staring up at your face with those wide, unblinking eyes. Most people assume they know what's happening. The dog senses you're sad. It's trying to comfort you. It wants to make you feel better. And that explanation feels right, doesn't it? It feels like love in its simplest form. But that's not the whole story. Because what's happening inside your dog in that moment is far more complicated than simple comfort. It's not just noticing you're upset. It's not just being a good companion. What's actually taking place is a biological event that most owners never see. And once you understand it, the way you interpret that moment will never be the same. Here's what researchers have found. And it changes everything. When you cry, your dog doesn't just observe your emotion from a distance. It doesn't simply recognize that you're behaving differently. What happens is something much deeper. Your dog's body begins to mirror your stress. Studies on canine cortisol levels have shown this repeatedly. When a human experiences emotional distress, their cortisol spikes. That's the stress hormone. And when a bonded dog is near that person, its cortisol rises too. Not because it's stressed by something external, but because it's physiologically syncing with you. This is called emotional contagion. It's not empathy in the way we usually define it. Empathy requires understanding what someone else is feeling and why. Emotional contagion is more automatic. It's when one individual's emotional state triggers a matching state in another. And in dogs, this response is biologically hardwired. Think about what that means in real terms. Your dog isn't deciding to feel worried because you're crying. It's not thinking, my owner is sad, so I should feel sad too. What's happening is that your emotional state is directly affecting its nervous system. Your stress becomes its stress. Your distress becomes its distress. And that's why the dog comes closer. Because when a dog's cortisol rises and its body enters a stress response, it doesn't seek isolation. It seeks proximity. Closeness is the biological solution to shared stress. In pack dynamics, in family structures, in any bonded group, stress is regulated through contact. So when your dog moves toward you while you're crying, it's not performing comfort the way a human would. It's seeking regulation. It's trying to stabilize itself by being near the source of the stress signal. Which sounds less romantic at first, but stay with this, because it gets more meaningful. That mirroring response only happens with dogs that are deeply attached to their owners. Random dogs don't show this cortisol sync. Dogs in shelters don't mirror the stress of strangers walking by. This physiological connection develops over time, through trust, through bonding, through thousands of small interactions that build attachment. What that tells us is profound. Your dog's body has learned to treat your emotional state as its own. The bond between you has become so strong that your nervous systems are communicating below the level of conscious thought. You're not two separate beings reacting to the same event. You're two beings experiencing a shared physiological moment. And this is backed by more than just cortisol studies. Researchers at the University of London tested whether dogs could distinguish between different human emotional sounds. They played recordings of people laughing and people crying. And they found that dogs responded differently to each. But more than that, when they heard crying, the dogs didn't just become alert. They showed what scientists call submissive, comforting behavior. They approached. They made physical contact. They displayed body language associated with appeasement and stress reduction. But here's where it gets more interesting. The same study found that the dogs didn't behave this way toward all crying. If the crying came from a stranger's voice, the response was weaker. But if it came from their owner, the reaction was immediate and intense. The dog didn't need to see you. It didn't need context. The sound of your distress alone was enough to trigger the biological response. That's not learned behavior. That's attachment in action. Now think about what happens next in that moment on the couch. The dog presses closer. Maybe it licks your hand. Maybe it puts its head on your lap. And for you, it feels like comfort. It feels like the dog is trying to help. And in a way, it is. But the mechanism isn't what most people think. The dog isn't trying to cheer you up. It isn't trying to distract you or make you smile. What it's doing is attempting to reduce the shared stress load. Physical contact lowers cortisol. Proximity triggers oxytocin. The same hormones that bond mothers to infants, that bond partners to each other, are being released in both of you. The dog is regulating your nervous system, and you're regulating its. This is the part that changes everything. The behavior isn't one-sided. It's not your dog serving you. It's not even your dog loving you in some abstract, noble way. It's your dog needing you in the same moment you need it. The closeness isn't just emotional. It's biological. It's mutual. It's survival, wired into intimacy. And that's why this matters more than the simple "dogs are loyal" explanation. Because loyalty is a choice. This is deeper than choice. This is your dog's body recognizing your pain as a threat to its own stability and responding the only way it knows how, by closing the distance. But there's another layer most owners never see. Some dogs don't just approach when you cry, they stay for the entire duration of your distress, even after you've calmed down, even after the tears have stopped. They remain close, watchful, alert. And that sustained attention isn't random. It's called vigilance behavior. After a stressful event, a bonded dog will often monitor its owner for an extended period, not because it's worried you'll cry again, but because its nervous system is still recalibrating. The cortisol doesn't drop immediately. The stress response lingers. And during that window, the dog is hypersensitive to your emotional signals. It's watching for signs that you're stabilizing, that your breathing has evened out, that your posture has relaxed. Because until you regulate, it can't fully regulate either. And this is exactly why some dogs become restless or anxious when their owners are upset for too long. If the crying continues, if the distress doesn't resolve, the dog's cortisol stays elevated. Its body remains in a state of alert. And over time, that chronic activation can shift from empathy into anxiety. The dog isn't just mirroring your stress anymore, it's developing its own. Which brings us to the distinction that really matters. There's a difference between a dog that responds to your tears with healthy attachment and a dog that becomes destabilized by them. And that difference comes down to one thing: regulation capacity. A securely attached dog can experience your distress, mirror it briefly, seek closeness, and then return to calm once you do. Its nervous system is flexible. It can handle the temporary spike in cortisol without tipping into prolonged stress. But a dog with anxious attachment, or a dog that's already living in a state of chronic stress, doesn't have that flexibility. Your tears don't just trigger empathy, they trigger panic. The dog can't regulate the shared stress. It becomes stuck in the arousal. And instead of comforting you, it starts pacing, whining, or showing other signs of distress. That's not because it loves you less. It's because its nervous system doesn't have the resilience to process the emotional contagion without becoming overwhelmed. And this is where the behavior starts to look completely different. If your dog always seems anxious when you're upset, that's not deeper empathy. That's a signal that the dog's baseline stress is already too high. It's not experiencing shared emotion in a healthy way. It's experiencing emotional flooding. And that distinction matters. Because the goal isn't to have a dog that absorbs all your pain. The goal is to have a dog that can be present with your pain without losing its own stability. That's what true attachment looks like. It's not fusion, it's not dependence. It's connection that allows for both closeness and autonomy. The dog can feel what you're feeling, respond to it, and then return to its own emotional baseline. And when that's working well, something remarkable happens. The moment you stop crying, the dog often sighs, or yawns, or shakes its body as if waking up from sleep. These aren't random gestures. They're stress release behaviors. The dog is physically discharging the cortisol buildup. It's resetting its nervous system now that yours is stabilizing. And in that moment, you're both recovering together. Not because the dog understood why you were sad, not because it gave you advice or solved your problem, but because it stayed close while your nervous system's recalibrated. And that closeness was enough. Now go back to that original scene. You're on the couch, you're crying. The dog approaches. But now you know what's really happening. You're not just being comforted, you're being mirrored. Your dog's body is responding to your emotional state as if it were its own. The cortisol is rising, the stress is shared, and the only biological solution is proximity. That's not less meaningful than comfort. It's more, because it means your dog isn't performing empathy out of duty or training. It's experiencing something real, something involuntary, something that only happens because the bond between you runs deeper than conscious thought. Your tears are a signal its body can't ignore, and its response is a signal your body needed. That's not companionship. That's biology translating love into something measurable, into cortisol and oxytocin and nervous system synchronization. And the next time your dog presses close while you're upset, you'll know. This isn't just kindness. This is two nervous systems recognizing each other. This is attachment written in hormones and heart rates and the distance a dog refuses to let grow between you. That moment will never look ordinary again. Does your dog stay right next to you when you're upset, or does it give you space and watch from a distance? But what happens when your dog stares at you without blinking? The meaning behind that behavior is nothing like what most owners assume.